Rolf is the Regional Technology Director for APAC at the Access Group. He has worked for large companies such as Dell, Microsoft, and AWS. Today, we're going to be going through his career journey from beginnings, challenges, highlights, all the way through to his career values and advice for others. Enjoy.
All right, Rolf, thank you for joining us today on Simper Says, mate.
Thanks for having me, George.
Yeah, it's been a while, mate. Been quite a few years, as we just discussed.
Yes.
Your role at the moment, and we'll go through your career as part of this interview, is you're a Regional Technology Director for Asia Pacific at the Access Group. But let's go back to when you were in school. What did you first want to be when you grew up?
That's a great. I don't think I really knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. I think I just wanted to get out of school as fast as I could, and I think when you do, then you kind of regret it, going, "Oh, I want to go back."
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
Yeah. So I didn't have a plan. Okay.
Do you have an early memory of the first thing you thought you might want to do?
I think I initially wanted to do law, out of all things.
Okay. Any inspiration as a child that made you want to do that? Maybe a TV program or something?
Not really. I think it was just something that that must have popped into my head for some way, shape, or form, and wanted a lawyer. It was for the first little bit.
Okay, cool. So, if I look at your career, obviously your initial education was almost like myself, actually. Funnily enough, Bachelor of Information Systems at ACU. When we look at LinkedIn. What was it? Just let's figure out what I want to do, and we'll give it a crack.
Well, I think so I had an interest in computing. So I initially started doing programming at Macquarie Uni, but the maths was out of control. So I was like, hang on a second, this isn't working. And the programming side was not kind of my forte. It wasn't that interesting. So I switched over to information systems, which was it felt far more practical and something that you could actually take and use.
Yeah.
After to get a job.
Okay. And obviously you followed that path. You got an initial job in help desk support. I feel for you, mate.
Yeah.
Hotline support as a network engineer. Tell me about, so was that something that you got out of uni, or was it just an opportunity that came up?
I had a job at uni with another consulting company doing looking after law firms, ironically, doing the IT there. So I was there for a little while, and then moved over to Hotline as a network engineer, looking up to all things Active Directory in Exchange and Windows, which is so fun. So building servers, racking and stacking, and basically building that out. So that was, hands-on, troubleshooting, help desk, all of that fun stuff.
Was there any when you were doing that, what skills do you think you initially got in that initial role that sort of has helped you sort of further into your career and the next opportunities?
I think probably the key one was just around dealing with people and understanding how technology, I guess the impact technology has on people's day-to-day work. So we were doing stuff from whether it was building new servers, but also fixing desktops and deploying desktops, and troubleshooting, learning how to troubleshoot. So take a problem that was being given to you by a non-technical person and then try to actually work out what was the problem and fix it for them. Generally in a short amount of time.
Yeah, usually, right? Yeah, usually. So you moved on to Dell back in 2004 as an enterprise support engineer. Was that just time to grow a bit more after the first role?
Yeah, I think an opportunity came along, and it was a big step into, I guess it was the kind of next step in my career is what to do. So working at Dell was heaps of fun. So that first role there was essentially fixing servers and storage across Australia and New Zealand. And the cool part was we never actually saw a lot of the servers that we're fixing. So we used a lot of like simulators and solution networks and troubleshooting trees to try and work out how to diagnose the problem, reading log files. And again, that gave you that real mission critical sense because a lot of those customers needed this stuff fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah. So that's one thing that's starting to worry me a little bit about people in current roles. I don't know how many opportunities people will have to do that initial troubleshooting, the real deep troubleshooting, because you just didn't have access to a lot of that information in the past.
No, that's right. And I think if you look at like cloud is a different type of troubleshooting now, and now you've got AI, so you can go and ask, Claude or ChatGPT or enter your preferred AI tool to go and tell you what the problem is. It's not always right, But you've got those tools that and we had nothing. We were literally reading through server log files and what were they? The DSET files I think Dell was produced to try and work out what the problem was.
Yeah. Yeah, my troubleshooting used to be calling my other team members to see if they had a clue what was wrong with it.
Well, we did that. The way that we were arranged, we were all, like there's 8 of us sitting together, and that was you turn around and ask the next person. So again, that's kind of different to now with a lot of people still working at home. There's no one. Who do you turn to?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I'd hope you'd still have that, but maybe it's adjust your prompt slightly.
Yeah, indeed.
So you did that role essentially for about a year and a bit, and it looks like you made that, I guess I would say, key decision in your career where you were going to go from technical more towards business focus, where you became a technical account manager.
Yep.
Tell me, what helped you make that decision, and what do you think you learnt or what was it that you did in your previous roles that gave you that opportunity as a technical account manager?
So I think I understood the technology, and it was more spending time with customers and actually helping them, starting to get more into their business problems and how you could use your understanding of technology to solve those problems for them. So rather than just being essentially on the support queue, essentially picking up tickets and fixing the problem, how can you be ahead of that? And I guess sort of pivot to be a bit more proactive and probably just being that proactive. So I'm bringing that technical experience that you've had from essentially living the nightmare to helping them get to the dream.
The dream. We're still aiming for that.
We're still trying to get there.
Still trying to get there. So really trying to become part of the solution rather than reactive solution.
Yeah.
Problem solving.
And I think going a bit higher as well, looking at because again, we were just looking at case by case, right, when there was a problem, but then starting to actually look across, with customers' environments and fleets and what they're doing and how they can manage their infrastructure more effectively and how help them do problem management and overall fleet management.
Yeah. From someone who was originally technical and then moving into the business type of role, what advantages do you think that gave you over somebody who sort of went directly into that type of role in their career?
I think it was the deep knowledge of how all the processes worked, how the technology works. You could have a discussion with whether an IT manager or what they call IT director in those days before the CIOs came along. You could have those discussions and you brought credibility with you because you understood what they were talking about, what the infrastructure did, how the network was configured, how it spoke to the storage. What a data center was, because you'd spent enough time in them. I think it was just bringing that technical credibility along and then starting to have a business type discussion.
That's cool. So your career then moved, I guess, up and up at Dell, where you became a team lead as technical account manager and then an account service senior manager. Did you have, I guess, was it a conscious plan for your career growth, or did you just take opportunities as they came?
So a little bit was conscious. I got offered another job while I was there, I think actually running a support team, which I consciously said I didn't want to do, and then waited for the TAM manager role to pop up. So I made some conscious decisions around that. But the rest of it sort of flew completely by chance.
And a lot of that, when you had that conscious decision, did you start trying to build some of those skills up and opportunities to be ready to go when that opportunity came along?
Absolutely. So I was very focused on what I was doing. I was essentially doing the role anyway at that time, but it was just making sure that it all comes down to delivery, right? Delivering all the things that you needed to probably above and beyond so that you become the natural choice. Okay.
It's good advice for others to listen to as well. Well, you always say, be ready when that opportunity comes along, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, then back in, I can't remember what year, in 2011, funnily enough, mate, that's only a couple of months after I started.
I think a whole group of us started then.
Yeah, it did. Huge pile of people started at the same time. You had an opportunity at Microsoft. Tell me about how that opportunity came up. And if I can, from listening to you, I think I can almost predict that a lot of the experience you'd built up until that point, again, gave you that great landing to potentially have the role, right?
So Microsoft was really interesting. So they hit me up for 3 different roles. So I'd been through the process. I can't actually remember what they were. But I think by the time I landed that role, if anyone ever complains about interview fatigue, I'd done 17 interviews at Microsoft for 3 different roles across APAC and ANZ.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's a fair bit.
And it was interesting, right? Because that role essentially was a holding role as well. So Microsoft, I don't know what it's like now, had this whole concept where we found someone that we really like. We want to bring them in and almost get them understand how the business works, get their feet under the desk and so on. And then the role that we actually want them to do will pop up.
I'm not sure if they do that anymore.
Yeah.
They could do. I don't know.
I think that maybe they don't openly talk about it.
Not sure.
Maybe they said that to me after 17 interviews. They felt sorry for me.
I did 6 interviews in mine, but the 6th one, I remember the hiring manager saying to me, if you weren't going to get the role, I wouldn't be talking to you.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah, made me relax a little bit more. So you were an engagement manager initially, and then obviously a senior engineering manager for Asia Pacific. I got to know you because you were a manager as part of one of the other teams that we were in the org that we were together in sales and Premier Field Engineering. So tell me about your time at Microsoft. What do you feel like you got out of Microsoft that helped you then, I guess, grow your career? Because one thing I do remember, there's a couple of things I remember about the time that you and I worked together. One I'll talk about a bit later. I remember you talking to me about your career growth and that you were getting a little bit frustrated. I don't know who the person was, to be honest. Maybe it was a manager you had at the time because they weren't really interested in your career growth. But I know that you were very conscious about what you wanted to do. I think you wanted to take on a role or more of a global role or more a strategic role. So tell me about your time at Microsoft and how that helped you achieve some of those goals to then get some of those roles, which I know you did get later in your career.
So Microsoft was cool. It was a brilliant culture, and I think fitted in really well. Had that real growth sort of mindset. So it was really pushing everyone to continue to develop and get better, whether you wanted to do in-role or next role development. So I think that was a big tick. It also gave you the way that we ran, I think Premier Field Engineering was pretty cool as well. So we ran it out as a business. So while it was essentially still a support group essentially to Premier, the way it was run was like a business. So they gave you all those opportunities and experience to essentially run different segments as well of the different areas of a business. And we're, weekly sort of rhythm of the business calls and looking at the metrics and what we need to do. And then you could actually see by the day-to-day work you did and working with your people, how you could actually move the dial. But it also, I think Microsoft was really good at that rigor around the quarterly check-ins. I think it's still called check-ins, the performance management side of not the people business, but really that focus around developing. So, we'd have every quarter it's looking at, we'd do calibration, looking at how we would, who's up for promotion, how we're going to promote people. So that gave you that really good sort of grounding and experience on how you should go about this stuff.
Okay, cool. So that then obviously helped you further on your career with some of the other roles you had, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So you were at MS for about 3 years, just over 3.5 years, and then you found a role with, at the time, God forbid that we say this word, AWS, Amazon Web Services. Now it's just like a merry-go-round. Everyone flops between
one to the other
companies. Yeah, pretty much. So and it looked like, and from the time when we had chats while you were there, it looked like you had some great opportunities there. You're initially a senior operations manager for Asia Pacific, then a regional operations manager in Asia, and then a head of cloud support engineering, which would have been really interesting because, any sort of role with a support engineering is in play would be very hectic, I would imagine. So take me through what was that like going to a different, larger company, the challenges you might have faced and how you grew in that role?
Yeah, so AWS is cool. And this was at what I would call the heyday of AWS, where it was still getting started. It was still very much focused on build. It was the startup mentality was there. It was a bit scrappy. We didn't have the processes and procedures in place, so you could just go and do stuff, fail fast. So it was heaps of fun. So I guess getting in there was really around how we started to mature what we did. We were growing so fast and we were hiring. I think we hired and hired and hired. I think at one quarter, I think I read over 3,000 CVs as we're building another support site in Bangalore. I was literally reading them on the bus, on the way to work, on the way home from work. It's minute you get, all we did was hire. It was so cool. It was completely different to, I guess, having been at Dell and Microsoft, which was at a different area, which was, we made a few redundancies and hiring was slowed down and so on. Whereas AWS was literally go, 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 go. One of our key metrics we were measured on was bums in seats. Yeah, have we hit our hiring target this quarter?
So what do you think was the major learning point from doing that?
From that one is around scale. How do you scale effectively? How do you move quickly? How do you hire really good talent at a high velocity, but without compromising on any of the quality components? I think the other piece around that was you really at AWS, you needed to understand how the technology worked and how it all linked together. And I think when I started, there was maybe 35 services. And when I left, there was like 170 services. And you needed to understand what they were, you didn't get into the depth of it because we had specialists for that. But at a high level, you needed to understand if someone was talking about this particular service, what it meant, what was the impact, how could that link to something that you were working on, or how does that impact a customer? What do customers do with it? But I think it was really just that operating at scale and a high velocity environment.
Okay. That's very interesting. So very different to what you did.
Completely different.
Yeah. So let's get into, you've had a few different roles, so I'll just go through them and then we'll talk about a few of the concepts in general. So you were a global VP, so you finally had that global role that I know you were looking to do at Nuix.
Yeah.
Then you were a regional technical director at Versent.
Yeah.
I think you currently are a board advisor for Proactive. And then, as we said earlier, you're also working currently at the Access Group, more from what I'm seeing, APAC focused rather than globally focused as well. So take me through, I guess, one of the questions I usually ask is give me a highlight and a low light. Take me through, and now that you've sort of worked in a number of different roles, what do you really like about these types of roles? What have you gotten out of being in global versus Asia Pacific or Asia facing roles?
So they're all different challenges, and even the role I've got now is global because I'm essentially looking after. I've got a team, so I run global operations for the Access Group, and I look after our storage, compute, data center, and tooling groups globally, and then have obviously the regional focus. Look, I think one of the cool things about having a global role is in essentially interacting with different people and working across different time zones. That's heaps of fun. The downside to working across lots of different time zones is Australia is in the worst time zone that you could imagine.
It is.
So we end up doing late nights and early mornings. So that's kind of one of the downsides. But I think what's really cool about, especially my job right now, is working really closely with product and engineering across the infrastructure stack and essentially how we're bringing our products to life. So you actually see that real time. It's like measurable impact in what you do. These products come to life, how we actually then run the back end of that to support customers using it. So I think that's a really interesting and fulfilling part of my job. So yes, I think I think if you ask me, regional or global, it really depends on each person. I think doing regional roles and then stepping into global is really important because there's all the nuances that you have to learn. So you need to understand labor laws across different countries. Each one has a different one. Are you having teams in the US, which I've had before? That's even more interesting because there's 52 different sets of labor laws depending on which state you're in. And some are right to work and some are at will. So that's always fun. And then all the nuances. And I think if I look at it as well, procurement, you procure differently in each single location. So how are you going to have procurement strategies in place to meet deadlines if you're need to grow out your infrastructure or scale out? So there's lots of really, really interesting things around having regional and global roles. They're heaps of fun, but they're a lot of work, and it's mainly the time zone that can be the killer.
Yeah. I feel you on that one, mate. My role currently is a global role, and I have the 6 a.m. meetings and then the request to have a call at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or whatever it is. And I'll just watch that recording is usually my response to them. So, okay. So a couple of things I ask everybody. So I've got 3 main values that guide me in my career. One is helping people. One is I need to have purpose in what I do. And the other one is I need some sort of passion in what I'm doing. And that sort of guides me throughout my decision-making, my career. So what set of career values do you have that have guided you in your career decisions?
I think the first of all is you've got to love what you do, because we spend a lot of time at work. And if you don't love what you're doing, then what's the point in doing it, right? You're just going to be miserable when you get home. So I think that's probably the number one. I think the second one is you've got to be able to measure the impact. Like you've got to leave every day feeling like you've actually achieved something. Now, we don't feel every day we've achieved something. We all know that because we have those days. But you've got to have that sense of accomplishment at the end of it. And I think the third piece for me is you want to work with great people. And I always like to work with people. I like working with great people. I like to learn from people as well. I don't have all the answers. I might be in senior roles and have lots of experience, but I have all the answers. So I think it's working with great people that you can continue to learn off.
Really good values, mate. So give me a highlight and one lowlight of your career so far.
Oh, that's a really good question. Lowlights would be, I guess, working with some challenging managers. That's probably lowlight for most people. I think some of the highlight would be, if I'm thinking about it, actually one of the highlights is three of us, when I was at Amazon, me and two other guys, we essentially came together and built this platform, which is now Amazon Health. It started out as we didn't have the monitoring in place. So when the AWS platforms went down, we relied on Twitter and cases to work it out. So we came together and actually wrote a 6-pager around how we could fix that. And then that actually came to life, which was awesome. So we got the opportunity to really focus on that. We built out a global team to do that. We built all the functions. We were lucky enough to go and present to Andy Jassy at the time, who was running AWS, who pretty much mandated that got rolled out on every single new product, which was pretty cool. And then that's sort of grown iteration after iteration after iteration. Now it's essentially the foundation of Amazon Health, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool. It's amazing what you can actually achieve if you get an opportunity in your career. Like
100%.
Things you would never think about that you could possibly do.
And it was solving a problem. It was a real problem. The main reason we did that was because it was annoying trying to work out this stuff, and it was time suck. And then we would have to essentially go and deal with angry customers or why it had gone down. So we were solving a business problem with technology. It was heaps of fun.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the last question I've got for you, and I will talk about one thing. The fond memory I have of you, mate, is like you're always a great person to chat to, whether it was, us having a joke and asking you to grab us a beer for the fun of it, or just asking for advice. One piece of advice you gave me was when I was trying to have some sort of influence on other people without that authority. You said, you've got to think about what is in it for the other person. What's the value to what you're asking for them? So I've always thought about that. Even today, I think about that. So thank you for that advice. It was very good advice. What advice would you give your younger self?
I think one of the best pieces of advice I've got, and actually came from Microsoft. I remember it was James Stanbridge said it. Yes. You've got to be the first to your own rescue. So that one, I use that one quite a lot. I mean, yeah, I think that's a component. Is you've really got to essentially, it's your, if I looked back to my younger self in my career, you own this, you drive that. There's no one else is going to be driving it. Like lots of people will help you along the way, but you need to decide what you want to do, because ultimately you're the one doing it. Right? And I say that to a lot of my staff as well. I can't pick your career path, but I can absolutely support you in what you want to do, but you need to decide what you want to do.
Good advice. Actually, that's funny. That's the second time someone's mentioned James in these interviews.
Yeah. There you go.
I might have to ping James and see.
I think you should definitely ping James.
I'll do that. Cool. Oh, Rolf, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to it.
Thanks, George.
We'll have to chat to you again. Actually, the last time I think I sent you a message was when I found your doppelganger in Adelaide. Whoever this person is,
right.
He looks exactly like Rolf. Let me know and we can do a photo comparison.
I'll have to go to Adelaide.
Yeah, we do. All right, mate. Thanks again. Awesome. Cheers. And for everyone else, thanks, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you for watching this episode of Simper Says. If you would like to see more videos, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Or follow if you are listening on a podcast platform to support the channel and join our community.